And you're right, we had gotten through verse 12 of chapter 8. So starting with verse 13 this morning. Hebrews. And verse 13, Paul is pointing out that the old is obsolete, the new is fresh, and I put an original production. He says, in that he saith a new covenant, he hath made the first old, now that which decayeth and waxeth old is ready to vanish away. New covenant. This takes us back to verse 8. And where he says, begins this, I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. Those who remember back, we noted at that time that there are two words for new. One, kainos, and the other, neos. Now, what did they mean?
Kainos is new in point of quality, and neos is new in point of time.
Okay. New in point of quality, and kainos, and new in point of time, neos. Which one is used in verse 8? Kainos. That it is an original production. It is new in point of quality. It's not a renovation or anything like that. Well, he uses the same word here. And they say that a new covenant, he hath made the first old. Now then, the reason I started that way is because the word old here. Make sure I spelled it. Paleo. And there's another one. H. Archeos. Now then, notice that I put them next to the other one. So someone want to take a guess as to meanings?
Say meanings of the other.
I don't know, paleontology, the other one is archaeology.
Well, those are the words we get those. These are where we get those words: paleology and archaeology. Paleo is old in point of use. It's worn out, something that is obsolete or antiquated. What?
No, that was just guilty.
Oh. You're saying you are. No. Archeos is old in point of time. Now then, guess which one is used here?
Archaeology.
No. It's in point of use. It's something that is obsolete. It's antiquated at this point in time.
That's what paleo means, in point of use?
Yes, that's what I just said. Whereas archeos is a point of time. So here is an old covenant. Old in what way? Not necessarily old in point of time. It is old in point of usage. It's worn out, obsolete. It's antiquated. Also, it is in the perfect tense. Now, what does perfect tense indicate?
Past action will continue.
That's present continuous action.
Past action will continue results.
Right. It's or completed action with continuing results. It is obsolete, has been obsolete, and continues to be obsolete. It's interesting, though. He hath made the first old. Now that which decayeth. Guess what? It's also from this word, paleo.
I don't understand why he would say it decay, and how could God the word decay? You don't mean decay in the sense of deteriorate, does it?
Well, that's exactly what it's dealing with. It is deteriorating.
Yeah, but his word is perfect in Romans 7. It's kind of confuses me.
It was old and obsolete, decaying from the standpoint of the fact that it could not bring salvation to mankind.
Oh, in that sense.
And that's the context. You go back to start verse 8. I'm making a new covenant with the house of Israel, with the house of Jacob. Why? Because the old is obsolete. It's decaying. It's ready to vanish away. And he shows the difference. It's not going to be like the covenant I made with the fathers when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. That one was as a child, or as a parent would lead as a child, taking them by the hand and leading them. This one, though, it's not written on tables of stone. It's written in the heart. And he shows the relationship. I'll be to them a God, they shall be to me a people, and so forth. So it's old from that standpoint. It's obsolete or decaying. But the word decaying here is the same word as old, paleo. And it's decaying. It is antiquated. It's obsolete. Now then, the funny thing is, when you get to and waxeth old, we have another word that's used. This is, make sure I spell them right. Oops. And yet, I messed up totally. G-R-A. Grace coat. It again means to grow old or to be old.
That's where we get geriatric, don't you?
We would, yes. Geriatrics comes from this word. A lot of our English words come from the Greek. But this word carries the idea of waning strength. It is a decay which is incident to old age. And so that which is obsolete and it's decaying and waxeth old from the standpoint of waning strength. Is ready to vanish away. When did Paul write this? You want to take notes? I hope you have them already. But when did Paul write this book?
In the late 50s, early 60s?
Well, I would say probably the middle to late 60s. It is before the destruction of Jerusalem.
So it's not too long before he died.
That would be true. But not saying that just in the standpoint so much as to the exact date in which he wrote it. When did the law cease?
When Christ nailed it to the cross. You're right.
Well, when he nailed it to the cross, he nailed the old law to the cross, but the effects of it wasn't seen till Pentecost. So let's put it that way. Why would he, some, let's just say, 30 years later, to be on the conservative side, say that it is ready to vanish away? And it already been put away?
Because people were still trying to push circumcision to keep the law of Moses and are having problems with people.
But wasn't it already done away with?
Well, and yeah.
Well, being the age of miracles, or the reason of confirming the word was being confirmed, so it was in the process, in that sense, as it was taught around the world. Or something like that.
Wouldn't the vanishing away occur when that which is perfect is come in 1 Corinthians 13? When the perfect totally was arrived?
So the old law continued to exist.
No, I didn't say that, but I'd say
I'm just asking the question then.
No.
If you're saying that it's
it wouldn't be binding on people. Otherwise, the Jerusalem conference wouldn't occur like it did.
Could it be that by this time the word had gotten to all the world?
Well, probably so, because that would be indicated in Romans 10th chapter, and I think it's verse 18, which would have been written around 58 A.D. Also Colossians 1:23, which would have been written around 63 A.D. So in that time frame, probably before this was being written, it would have already gone to the entire world. The word ready to vanish away. And let me, it's U.S. And I'll put another G there. It's E-G-G-U-S, but when you go to pronounce it, anytime there's two G's together, it's pronounced N-G. So they would, depending on how you want to do it. It means near vanishing. It's not that it's ready to be done away with. That he doesn't say that. See, I asked when it was done away with. See, words mean things, don't they?
It don't never vanish away because you've got Romans 15:4.
It says that it's ready to vanish away. It is near to vanishing away. Near vanishing. That's what this word means. Near vanishing. The old was ceased or was abrogated. It was done away with when Christ nailed it to the cross. The vanishing away of that would be at the destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70.
Is there a verse in Scripture that like you use to prove that?
This. Let me ask you. Here's a best illustration that I can come up with. And don't have a match, but if it had a match and we lit it, you have a fire, right? What if you blow the match out? What happens? The fire goes out. It's still smoldering. The smoke is still ascending even though the fire's gone. So the old law was done away with, yet now then it was ready to vanish away from the standpoint of it was going to be taken out totally out of the way by God. And that's what he did when he destroyed Jerusalem, and Titus and the Roman armies destroyed all of the genealogical records. Thank you. I couldn't think of that word for some reason. The genealogical records. And without those, you have an ending of the law.
That's how you trace the Messiahs.
Well, and once that was destroyed, there was no way to trace the Messiah again. You have that recorded, though, in Matthew 1 and Luke 3. But as far as the Levitical priesthood, high priesthood, and all of their work, How was it going to take place without any genealogical records? Could not. So it was going to vanish away, even though the effects of it, the Mosaic law itself, had been done away with, yet the effects were still lingering. And those effects are going to be done away with, or going to vanish away, when the destruction of Jerusalem takes place. That's why he says it's ready to vanish away. It's already been done away, but now then the effects of it are going to be totally taken out of the way, and not even going to see any effects of it any longer. Chapter 9, in verses 1 through 15, and looking at the outline, that it is actual, while the first was but typical. And in the first 10 verses, we have the old was only a type. In verses 1 through 5 under that, the tabernacle and its furnishings. And verse 1, its sanctuary is on earth. Then verily the first covenant had ordinances of divine service and a worldly sanctuary. Get rid of this. Ordinances is from a word which means literally decrees, laws, regulations, requirements, or what we might say, commandments. So it had ordinances of divine service and a worldly sanctuary, or divine, had laws, had commandments of divine services. If you look at Ephesians 2:15, having abolished in his flesh the enmity, even the law of commandments. Is it saying the same thing as here, the ordinances of divine service? It's parallel. But notice a little small word here. Verily the first covenant had what? Also. What does also mean?
Additionally.
In addition to. Okay. What's he saying then?
That the new covenant has ordinances.
That's exactly it. That the New Testament has divine ordinances. It has commandments as well as the Old. A lot of times we miss that. Divine services is very basically that which was ordained by God. The word that's translated service here is Greek word latria, L-A-T-R-E-A. Did I say that right? E-I-A. Latria. And it deals with service for hire, or as a slave, is the meaning of the word. In some mistranslations of Romans 12, and I quote it, verse 1. I have to put it in mine to see if it's verse 1 or 2. It says in King James, which is your reasonable service, is this word. Some mistranslate that and have built the doctrine of all of life is worship by translating the word worship. It's not what it means, though. It is service. Then, worldly sanctuary. Sanctuary is from this word hagios. What do we get from hagios? You should have heard me say it many times through the years.
Saint.
Saint. Holy is a word that we normally associate with it. Holy. So when he's talking about this, and a worldly sanctuary, a worldly holy. Now, we'll mention holy in just a minute, but he's dealing with us, the holy place. Worldly is from Greek word kosmikos, actually, which is from a form of cosmos, means of or pertaining to this world. Well, the contrast that he's making is that this is something that is of or pertaining to this world as opposed to the heavenly world. It was a physical sanctuary, a physical holy place. What is ours?
Spiritual holy place.
Yet ours is a spiritual holy place. So he's making a contrast here. Now then, we're going to talk about this holy place that is of this world. Verse 2, the furnishings in the holy place. For there was a tabernacle made, the first, wherein was the candlestick and the table and the showbread, which is called the sanctuary. Tabernacle is a Greek word which means tent. Here, though, it has reference to the first division of the tabernacle, which was the holy place. When we're dealing with the tabernacle, there is an outer court. And no, it's not to the dimensions or anything like that. It's not even a good square or rectangle or anything like that. But, does anyone know the dimensions of the court?
45 feet wide.
No. 150 feet by 75 feet.
Did the original tabernacle have lesser dimensions than the temple?
We're talking about the tabernacle.
You're talking about the tabernacle. Okay.
This is the outer court of the tabernacle. Let's see. Our auditorium, if I can remember the dimensions of it, I measured it the other day, is about 80 foot, if I remember right, in length.
I feel like it's longer than that, but I guess you're right. Seems longer. That's a football. You got a 10 foot for a basketball goes.
If you actually, it would the 80 foot would be just a little ways inside the swinging doors as you go in. That's about 80 foot. So when you talk about 75 foot, that gives you the idea of, and then just double it for the other. Okay, inside you have the actual tabernacle. It was what were its dimensions?
45 foot wide.
No. 15 by 30. This room.
Oh, is that the most holy place there?
No, that's both of them.
Both of them, okay.
This room, its dimensions are 22 by 12. What was it?
Trying to figure out what that's written for 3 weeks.
It was written on this board, it was written on the other one.
Because I did not.
It's reference for some.
I had planned on getting to this last week, and I didn't know if we were going to be in that room or this room, so I wrote it on both of them so that I would remember. But this room is about 22 by 12. That gives you some idea as to 15 by 30. Add 3 foot on here and 8 foot that way. And you have basically the temple proper. What were the pieces of furniture out in the court? Were there any? Was there any? An altar?
Table showbread?
No. Table showbread was not out there.
Oh, you mean out in the court area?
A laver. Hmm? That would be the altar where they would actually kill the animal. And if you recall, in fact, the Hebrew letter talks about Christ was crucified without the gate. The figure that we're going to see throughout the next few chapters, Christ, this has reference to. Understand in typology, may I preface it with this. In typology, something can stand for more than one thing. So, when we're talking about typology, the altar could and does represent Christ's death. It also represents our repentance. So, depending on how the figure is being used, it can apply to different things. Christ was sacrificed in what was represent the world. What did he then do? What did the high priest do on the Day of Atonement?
Holy place.
Hmm?
He went into the holy place.
Well, he went through the holy place into what? The most holy place. And then he would offer the blood there. What did Christ do? He died out in the world. What did he have to do? He had to take the blood into heaven itself, and he offered the sacrifice there in heaven, not here upon this earth. But now then, there was a veil in the temple that made this 15 foot. Actually, I think that was supposed to be 45 foot, isn't it?
My one says 45.
Yeah. And this would be 30 foot there, 15 and 30. That's what. And then it was also 15 foot high. And I didn't measure the height of this, but I'm going to guess probably around 10 foot. Would that be about right? Guesstimate. So, now then, within these two compartments, the first, you talking about this place or the holy place, as opposed to the Holy of Holies or the most holy place, depending on how people call it. In the holy place, there were pieces of furniture. What were they?
Candlestick.
Candlestick. What? the table of showbread, and anything else?
Yeah, there was one more thing.
What?
I forgot. One in my head today. I know though.
I forgot. Let's see. Where did I forgot go? Well, okay. As you would enter in, and by the way, I think this would always be facing the east. Down here, you would have the candlestick. Candlestick is used here. Wherein was the candlestick? It is a Greek word which literally means lamp or lampstand. There were 7 lamps that were burning on this lampstand, and it was on the south side of the compartment. So I guess I should turn that around, shouldn't I, to be accurate. But on the south side. Then on the north side, you had the table of showbread. Okay, there's the other one.
Right here. Found it. Find the
There's-
Exodus had a picture of it.
Altar of incense would be here on the eastern side. The table of showbread, or the table and the showbread, it was the table. On the table would be the showbread. It was basically treated as one item, though. It was a table with loaves on it, and is on the north side of the holy place. Okay, Dale.
Was there any particular reason other than just the Lord's prescribing that the lamp thing there was put on the south? Did you have any reason it was put on the south?
I'm going to have to ask God.
Oh, okay.
Don't know. Don't really have time to go into depth, but what would the candlestick or the lampstand represent? Okay. On occasion, it will represent the Word of God. Thy Word is a lamp unto my feet and light, so forth. On other occasions, it would be the light of the Christian life. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. So, again, depending on the way in which it's being used. What would the table of showbread represent?
Lord's Supper.
Okay, the Lord's Supper. I didn't know what this meant, Karen. She just goes. The Lord's Supper. Then you have this altar of incense, or sometimes referred to as the golden altar. What does it represent? Okay, the prayers of saints. I think that's Revelation. Is it 8:5 or 5:8?
8:1-3.
But it represents prayers of saints.
It says in 3.
And okay, Dale, we
Okay,
don't. So these are. This is called the sanctuary, and again, it is this Greek word hagios, meaning holy, reference to the holy place. Verse 3. The furnishings in the Holy of Holies, and that's verses 3-5. After the second veil, the tabernacle, which is called the holiest of all. There were 2 veils, actually. We only think of one veil, which is this veil that separates the holy place from the Holy of Holies. But there was this, which was also a veil. So when it says within the second veil, 1, 2, so you're talking about the Holy of Holies. Now, actually, one was before the door of the holy place. And the holiest of all, as it's translated here, is literally Hagia Hagion, Holy of Holies. Both of them from Hagios, but Hagia Hagion, Holy of Holies. Verse 4, which had the golden censer, and the ark of the covenant overlaid round with gold, wherein was a golden pot that had manna, and Aaron's rod that budded, and the tables of covenant. We have a problem. Paul takes this and places it in here, which had the golden censer, the altar of incense. Did Paul make a mistake? Did he not know what these things were?
Well,
It's normally put out here.
maybe Paul was the one that wrote 1 Timothy 2:5, our mediator, Hebrews 7:25, our intercessor. And so we pray through him, so now he's ascended back to heaven.
No doubt.
Maybe that ties in.
Would that represent that only a Christian's prayers are heard?
It being in the holy place would represent that for us. Look at the word, which had. It is a Greek word, echo. I think it's just, E-C-H-O. Echo. And the meaning of it is to hold or to have. But it does not necessarily carry the idea of containing or in. It has it, but it's not in there. I wish we had time, and I'm not going to take the time, but if y'all will read Leviticus 16, verses 11 through 13. And verse 12 in particular, I'll read that one. He shall take a censer full of burning coals from the fire from off the altar before the Lord, and his hands full of sweet incense, beaten small, and bring it within the veil. And also Exodus 30th chapter, verses 6 through 8. He is dealing with, yes, this is not in there, but it's in here. But he takes this in so that it holds this, but it's not in there. It doesn't reside in the Holy of Holies. It resides in the holy place, but on that Day of Atonement, the high priest is taking it inside there so that actually this entire compartment fills up with smoke and odor from the incense. Alford explains this as being in the Holy of Holies by quoting the Mishnah, that there was a golden censer used just on the Day of Atonement, and it was full of coals of fire carried into the Holy of Holies by the high priest. Incense was then put on the fire, and a cloud of incense covered the mercy seat. Thus it had to do with the Holy of Holies, but was not a permanent part of it. Now, I think that's the explanation as to why Paul would then take this and put it inside here in writing this, instead of putting it out in the in the holy place where it's normally considered. It's not that he made a mistake on it, but that it on the Day of Atonement that here's this golden censer that the high priest would use to take coals from this altar into this place. And that would fill with smoke, and he would have incense on it, so the smoke and odors filling that compartment. But it was not a permanent part of that compartment. And there's a lot of other explanations that are given, but I think that's the most logical
So
and
when
sensible.
he did that, and when that smoke filled that most holy place, that was typifying Revelation 8:3.
I think that it is the prayers of the saints are, yes, that it goes up as a sweet odor before God. That's one of the representations of it. It says that it has, or the golden, or that in it, wherein was the, it's the Ark of the Covenant, overlaid with, round about with gold, wherein was the golden pot that had manna. And you can see Exodus 16, verse 33 and 34 regarding that. It had Aaron's rod that budded. You can see Numbers 17, verses 1 through 11. And I wish we had time to discuss Aaron's rod that budded. What did it have? What was that in reference to? Just as a quick reminder.
That was when the people that questioned the authority of Moses, Korah, Dathan, and Abiram, and then the other following theirs, got judged because they.
Okay, at the rebellion of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram, and at the beginning, On, apparently. And he destroys them. Then God shows through allowing Aaron's rod to bud, while the others does not, that Aaron is that high priest and priestly office. And then it contained the tables of covenant. And for that, you can see Deuteronomy, the 10th chapter, verses 1 through 5. See, if we had plenty of time, we would read all of those and go through them, but we don't. Verse 5, he goes on, and over it the cherubims of glory, glory shadowing the mercy seat, of which we cannot now speak particularly. Cherubim is actually a Greek word. Cherub is the singular, plural is cherubim. King James actually does us an injustice. Cherubims should not be an S on it. Cherubim is plural. Cherub, C-H-U-R-B, or R-U-B, would be singular. It means living creatures. And they were the keepers or the guardians. They were winged creatures that stood over the Ark of the Covenant. There were 2 in number. They were made of gold and of one piece with the mercy seat. It wasn't 2 pieces or 3, but it was basically one piece joined with the mercy seat. And the golden cover of the ark. You had a cherub at each end of the ark, looking toward one another and overshadowing the mercy seat. Let me ask a question, and we'll probably end with this, but are angels depicted as winged beings?
People are both scripturally. Like I said, scripturally or not.
From the Bible, they are not. The cherub, sometimes, and seraphim are oftentimes are winged beings, but they're not referred to as angels. Now then the question is,
I was gonna say, because there was 6 wings and
Well, where that's the cherubims,
yeah.
where though would they be referred to as being angels? See, they're not really. Now then, we generally assume that they are angels, but it's not stated. And if we assume that they are, then they would be the only exception to that rule of being winged beings. So, that's another study on angels, which we should have and would have taken into consideration in chapter 1 if we had had time, but we didn't. So we'll stop there.